Hello and welcome to MotorInc First. Today we're discussing Nissan's newest second. They have only two products now, right? Yeah, the second car from Nissan, the X-Trail. It's a big step up in price from the Magnite, if I'm not mistaken.
So at the time of us recording right now, we waited for the prices to come, but they're still not out. But yeah, it's going to be a massive step up.
Why?
Because the Magnite is in the 10, 12, 13, that range,
Correct.
ex-showroom.
Yeah.
This is going to be in the 40 to 50 range.
Oh, they're not making it here. It's imported.
It's imported.
Why?
It's a CBU. Good question. It's a very good question.
Should we come back to this question? Or
No, I think this is where we should start.
Okay.
This is where we should start.
All right.
The idea is what? What is this idea of bringing the X-Trail in? So sometime back, Nissan had done this showcase of 3 global cars, saying that we're going to bring these to India. And the basic thought behind it is they have only one car in the showroom today.
Correct.
There's only one vehicle to talk about.
Yeah.
And they want to bring back the sense of what Nissan can do so that people know what Nissan is about through their CVUs.
So for which they need a 40 lakh rupee GTR, right? Not a 40 lakh rupee X-Trail.
The GTR has stopped production in most countries. I mean, it's not on sale in most countries.
Okay.
It's only a couple of countries where it's still on sale and will be done in the next year or in the next few months.
Okay.
So GTR is what they had used earlier as well. You've
Correct.
seen this playbook from Nissan before.
Correct.
When Nissan came to India first, they got the X-Trail, the first gen X-Trail.
Yeah, I remember driving it and I think I have a very good impression of that car.
Correct.
Yes.
So they brought the first gen, people liked it, they got the second gen. The third gen, they missed out in India. And now we've got the fourth gen again. So they've done this before to get CBUs, or basically their global products, and bring them to India so that people have something to look up to Nissan to.
Right.
They did the same with the GTR, and the GTR was brilliant. That is the ultimate showcase of what Nissan is.
Right.
And what they're trying to do with the X-Trail now is exactly that. That build up the aspiration around brand Nissan, remind you what brand Nissan is about.
But if they've done this playbook before and they're not in a good place right now in the sense of only one car, it's a good car, don't get me wrong, but they've only one car on sale, etc. How is it that this time this playbook will work again?
So they are planning to bring more products.
More CVUs?
No, more India-specific products.
Okay.
Those are in the pipeline. So there is a bigger SUV. There is an EV. So all these conversations are happening, and over the next couple of years, we'll see them. So until then, they need something to keep the buzz around Nissan.
Okay.
And this is what they've done.
Don't you think that a pickup truck or something would have been a more interesting thing to do than an X-Trail?
They could have done anything, but this is not it.
Oh, great. Why?
This is not it. The X-Trail, as an idea of being a brand resonator, something that will get people excited. And at the showcase, they've done exactly that. They'd shown their high-tech version of the X-Trail. They had shown the one with hybrid tech, with all-wheel drive as well. What we've got in India today, what they brought to India, is not that. They brought this.
So wait, we are doing a MotorInc First for a car that is going to come, but the car you drove is not the car that is coming.
No, the car that we drove is the one that's come to India. So they've got 150 units of the X-Trail.
150?
Yeah, 150 units of
What's
the X-Trail.
What's the population of our... Sorry, okay, no, I don't want to... I'm not doing this. 150, oh, okay.
150 units of the X-Trail. It's a small number, 100%. They say they're already here, so there's no question of waiting for the X-Trail if you want one. The thing is that if you want something to excite people, then it has to be exciting.
Yeah.
It has to be a little bit unreasonable.
Correct.
Whereas the entire messaging around why this trim or this variant or this spec of the X-Trail has come to India is all about, customers wanted this. This is what Indian customers are willing to buy. Then why are we stuck at 150 units? Why are we at that number? Then it should be a deeper commitment to saying that, hey, we're going to build this in India. Like Skoda has done with the Kodiaq. And this is a rival to the Kodiaq.
Right.
And the Kodiaq is a great example of pushing the brand forward. Because even when it went petrol, even when it became ridiculous in so many ways because the pricing just kept moving up. And there were lots of people who thought that this is unsellable. But the idea of Skoda and what the Kodiaq did for Skoda as well, with that, was so sharp that people lapped it up. It wasn't like the units that came to India were just sitting around. People wanted it and they wanted more of it, which I don't think the X-Trail is going to pull off.
No, because to me the X-Trail badge, from what I remember of it in the country, is not an exciting badge. It's a practical Japanese car. That's not exciting.
Shumi, they've taken that practical car and brought the most practical version of it to India. So the problem is that this can be a sensible car for other markets, but in India, when it comes here, it's meant to be aspirational, but you've got the sensible version. So it cannot suddenly do the job that we are expected that it's here to do.
And it has to hold station for, you're saying, 2 years before this next wave of cars comes.
Even if in the next 1 year, whatever, because like the Magnite facelift will come, which is great.
But that will still be one car in the showroom, right?
Yeah, that's still one car in the showroom. They'll have more over the next another 6-8 months after that. They'll have more. This is all what I've heard. I don't know about this.
So that's what I'm saying. No, so in the next 18 months, whether it is this Magnite or the next Magnite, you only have one primary bread butter car. And you're saying the X-Trail is supposed to be your halo car, is the role for the next 18 months.
Yeah.
But as a halo car, instead of getting the more exciting version of the car, they've got the more practical version of the car. I think you need to watch the Japan episode now. Okay. I understand the contextually we have a disconnect here. You think Nissan has not got the right X-Trail, but let's talk about the car first and we'll come back to the context again.
So this is where we should go now, because that's where you'll understand why it's a misfit.
Okay.
They've got the base engine, which is this 3-cylinder. Okay, this.
Wait. A 40 lakh rupee car with a 3-cylinder engine.
So everything when you talk about this car, and with the people, even from Nissan, when you speak to them, it's almost like a little bit apologetic when you ask them something, because it'll, on paper, it sounds so wrong. 1.5 liter, 3-cylinder engine in a 40 lakh rupee car. Okay, chal, you'll say fine. I'll get to the tech of that engine. That's a different part of this conversation. It's turbocharged. It makes 163 horsepower.
Whoa!
Which is as much as a Creta and
So
Seltos.
40 horsepower more than the Tata Altroz Racer.
Oh, nice. Not bad. Not bad. So
When he talks, I listen, okay, despite what you guys say.
so it's got that. Then there's the next apology, which is, what transmission does it have?
5-speed.
CVT.
Oh no.
Right?
Oh no.
All those things like that, slowly they build up, and you're just like, what? How can this be a 40 lakh rupee car? Yes, it is a 7-seater. So you're like, okay, fine, that's good. And you keep going through the car and you see different things, and it just feels like, how can this fit in that price range? There are no leatherette seats, there are no ventilated seats, therefore there's no powered tailgate. The touchscreen infotainment system is par for the course today for a 7 lakh rupee hatchback. It's small, it's tiny, and I think there's no Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, wireless connectivity.
At all?
At least I couldn't get it.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I mean, it didn't work for me.
Okay.
So and the brochure, I don't have it in hand. I just have a spec sheet. So as far as I know, it doesn't get wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. There are all these kind of things which are just like, this is budget, this is budget, this is budget. There are no part seats. On top of that,
Not at all.
nothing.
Not even the drivers.
Nothing. Only the lumbar support for the driver's part. The seats are all manually adjustable. So everything you look at the car and you're like, this is not going to make me sit up and say that, wow, I'm glad Nissan brought this to India. I'm glad that I'm experiencing Nissan
you
all
saw
over
the
again.
brochure, right?
No, I haven't seen the brochure.
So do they spell it X-Trail or EX-Trail?
It's X-Trail.
Because it sounds like EX already. And we are what, 5 minutes into this? I'm honestly telling you, it's not sounding good. And I'm honestly telling you, we've dealt with Japanese companies before. We have a whole podcast episode on this, and forget all of that. Nissan, you make good engines. You're globally renowned for it. You're a good brand. I have had people in my family in other continents who own Nissans and have great experiences and bought multiple Nissans, Altimas. Okay? Have a little courage. Without courage, this is not going to work. You're going to have to take a risk. You're going to have to plunge in feet first and say, okay, we'll try something new. If you keep playing the same playbook again and again and again and expect a different result, science says it cannot be done. Okay, we'll continue.
So it's good you brought up the reliability angle as well. Because this engine is a very high-tech engine.
Okay.
It's Nissan, it's called the VC Turbo.
Okay.
So it's got variable compression. and in a
Nice.
completely different way, not in the Atkinson and that style, which just varies the valve timing, and on that basis, this actually has a leg.
Oh yeah, I remember this from a while ago. Yeah. Okay.
It has a leg in the connecting rod,
Right.
which changes the
Correct. The stroke slightly and gives you a slightly different compression in the process.
slightly massively.
Okay.
It goes from 8:1 to 14:1.
Oh wow, that's a big range.
Yeah, massive range.
Yeah.
So very high tech.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you get better, I mean, you get a great balance of performance and efficiency with a small engine.
Yeah.
But the catch in that also is that this is a complicated engine. And now I read up about this, and a lot of people were talking about that it's not reliable and it's had a lot of issues. The fact is that this engine in the US right now, the NHTSA has issued a study for it, saying that a lot of issues have been reported, but there's been no recall on it.
Okay.
So again, in that sense, it's not the best foot forward. Is it going to be something that will stop me from buying an X-Trail if I like an X-Trail? No. But the point is that this is a complicated conversation because of this.
Oh my God.
Right? It's not showing Nissan in the light that they would want to be seen as. And it's not, definitely, forget about what they want it to be shown as. Do you feel it?
Yeah.
Correct? And now, for the good part, this car, when you start driving, you do sit up and say, this is the company that made the GTR, right?
Okay.
This is the company that made the GTR. Because when I started driving it, you forget that this is a 3-cylinder, that has got only 163 horsepower. It feels good to drive. That engine does better than whatever, it might be that as well. That to one degree, it is because you saw 163 horsepower and you thought this is going to be sluggish. But then when you start driving, it's got 300 Newton meters of torque. So it's plenty of torque.
Yeah.
So it gets moving quickly. It doesn't feel big, heavy.
Right.
It gets going. So it's good to drive. You feel that, that this is special, what they managed to achieve. And this is enjoyable. Even in the way it steers, it's riding on 20-inch wheels. So my flag itself was 20-inch wheels is a bad idea any which way. So I was looking out for that as well. How will the ride be? But it works.
And monocoque.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the X-Trail was always a monocoque. This is also a monocoque. And it's got multi-link rear suspension. Front is independent. So it rides and drives really nicely. So it feels special in that way.
Right. So basically you're saying the car itself is not a poor experience, but where the conversation usually starts, which is the spec, which is the promise, which is the first sense of, wow, that looks so interesting, I should drive one. At that point, they've already put themselves on the back foot.
Yeah. So until you get in and drive, you will always just think that this is...
So tell me something, should they have designed the event so that you drove the car first and discussed it later? Because the usual format is they tell you about the car and then you drive it. In this case, it sounds like they should just let you drive it first.
Now that I've built up that little bit, let me bring it back down. Okay? Because I didn't get into the cabin part of it, the rest of it, because that, again, just stops this conversation.
No, that I got a clue from because you said no leatherette, no ventilated seats, no powered seats.
No. Wait.
Oh, it gets worse?
Wait. This is a 7-seater. At worst, it would be 5+2. Correct? It's not even that. It's a 5-seater. Those third row of seats, the third row, is not usable. It is just not usable.
But why not? If I don't like my friends, then I can put them in
It's not even a question of friends. You'll have to put kids there and kids that you don't like.
Oh, wow.
It's unusable.
Okay.
Right? It's really... I couldn't make sense of it. Access to the third row is poor. The middle row doesn't tumble forward. It just folds a little bit and then you slide it forward. That's it. You kind of crawl into the rear. And just trying to get back to this, way back, the Datsun Go Plus?
Yeah.
I remember the Datsun Go Plus, the third row of the Datsun Go Plus. If you Google Datsun Go Plus third row images on and just look for some of the images there, you'll get the idea of what this feels like. It's just inconvenient.
Ouch.
And if you were to sit, and why am I saying that it's not usable at all? If you have anybody sitting in the third row, the second row is done.
It's a sliding second row seat.
You have to push it all the way forward, and literally your knees, you're almost into the back of the front seats. So I set it up that way so that I could sit on the third row. Then I went and sat in the middle, and
you're 5'6".
Yeah.
Oh, this is not sounding good at all.
And the seat back is short, headroom isn't much. So that third row is just, I mean, it might work for another market where you're just saying occasionally kids are going to sit there, whatever. I mean, a seven-seater in our case, in our country,
And
is
we
a
are
very
used to
different-
seven-seaters that have space in three rows
Proper.
now.
Proper.
Especially at 40 lakh rupees.
There are so many cars that you could get for less than 40 lakh rupees.
Yeah.
Now, if you were to look at this as a competitor to the Jeep Meridian, to the Skoda Kodiaq, on what front does it match up?
It's Japanese.
I mean, that's not a parameter on which you can compare them.
Hello? Have you seen how many people just...
Because the others are not Japanese, na?
So what difference does it make? People defend Japanese products anyway. So they'll defend the Nissan? Oh no, they don't defend Nissan. That's the one exception. Sorry. I have no
People
argument.
don't defend Nissan.
Well, I haven't seen anybody defending Nissan. You remember the Magnite, the front bumper shook slightly over that?
Yeah.
And all the comment stream was about how the bumper was shaking. Despite us saying, you can't feel it inside. It's a nice car. But the whole comment stream was focused on the shaking of the bumper from that one shot.
And here's the interesting thing. I'm glad you brought up the Magnite. And I describe that as an honest product.
Yeah.
It's a product that does so much, so well, and its price is honest as well.
Yeah.
My worry is with all these things happening and all the talk around building up the brand and building up the Nissan prestige, as it were, I hope that doesn't change. That product deserves to do a lot better, and I'm hoping the facelift fixes that. What Nissan needs are more products that are relevant to us and work for us and our needs.
Correct.
The X-Trail, if it had to fit our needs, didn't have to be this spec. It had to be all out, and you take transfer pricing which hurts you and sell it at a price that works here, because then people actually get to know Nissan
Correct.
and the product
Yep.
through that product.
Yep.
But this is not the one that's going to do it. So it's a product that deserves to do a lot better. It has a great set of values. You can feel that. It feels like a product that's genuinely out to help you.
Yeah.
Now, what I would love to see from this X-Trail come to the Magnite is that sense of quality in the cabin.
Okay.
So the X-Trail, it's not fancy.
It's made in Japan.
It's made in Japan.
Huh. Okay.
So it has soft touch materials everywhere. It's got great plastics. It's not the question of having soft touch materials, but it's how well it's done.
Right.
It's the simplicity of it. So the one thing I really liked on the car was the driver's instrument cluster. It's a 12-inch screen. Where the touchscreen infotainment system is tiny and this thing is massive. And a lot of people will say that it's too simple. But I loved it because the function of that instrument cluster is to show me the relevant information easily. I can read it even at a quick look, and that it did beautifully. It had just had a few customizations that you could do. You could have more complexity and make it cooler, but I liked the simplicity of it.
Right.
These are the kind of small things that I think you can do so much with in terms of ideas, even for the Magnite. Right now, the Magnite, it needs better plastics for sure. It needs that sense of quality inside the cabin so that it can punch higher. It needs to have a little bit more performance even for the base engine. So these are the values that, I mean, this base engine, right? It's a strong performer. Let's have that kind of performance in that base engine.
But if they put this VC engine there, the price will go up by quite a bit.
No, this VC engine can't go there for sure. But the point is that value should transfer there as well.
Understood.
If the X-Trail is talking about all these things as being a sensible pick for Indian buyers, and see, in the past, people who bought the X-Trail, even after Nissan stopped selling the X-Trail, the ones who had it, valued it, held on to it. And I get that. It was a small car.
Yeah.
It was
correct. It was very
really
easy to drive. It was compact and it was boxy. So it was easy to understand how big this car is and fit it into things, and it drove well.
Correct. Yeah. So this car also drives well. This car also has now that boxy design. Not boxy. It's more square than the previous one. The third gen became a little curvy and all that. This one is back to being square, and it looks nice. But it's not got the kind of presence that you would get with a Kodiaq, and definitely not with a Fortuner or anything like that.
Right.
So it's car-like. It's more urbane and a little bit cool. I like the rear a lot. And as far as Nissan and what they need to do for India is quite clearly for me, don't do the CBU business. Build products that are India specific, are India ready and right for us.
No, and I'm going to say,
those hard.
Yeah, I get, but I'm saying making an India friendly product, etc., is a longer term process. So if you want to short circuit the process, bring Halo cars. then let's not mess around with it. Bring halo cars.
Correct.
Let people say, oh my God, I can't believe they launched that. So if you have to get the hybrid Nissan and that's 55 lakh rupees, I think it's a better thing than bringing the base model X-Trail here.
Shumi, I'm to even saying, even if it costs 70 lakh rupees, don't sell it at 70 lakhs. Sell it at 60 lakhs. You take that hit. If you are so keen on building your brand, and if that's what it takes, and you're selling only 150, and that's your marketing cost, please do it by all means. If that's the value that you want to communicate. If you can't commit to assembling it in India, to building it in India, then that's the other way around it. You're saving a cost here. Invest it somewhere else.
Courage.
There has to be commitment. And that commitment is not there right now being seen in this way of going about doing things.
So basically this X-Trail is not going to achieve much.
This X-Trail is, it's doing much because it's showing that it's not on.
No, for the customer I'm saying.
Okay,
let me split that question into two parts. One, if somebody were to go out and buy an X-Trail for this money with this spec, will they be upset about their ownership experience of this car?
I don't know about the ownership experience because it's going to be a handful of cars. So after that, the after-sales service, all of that, how will it go in the long term?
How is Nissan's reputation today for after-sales service?
We have one car right now.
And they're managing that car reasonably well.
That is fine. And in that, they are doing well because that car is selling a lot. The Magnite sells a lot for them. And that is proving to be good value for owners and continues to be. Even now, it's been a couple of years. It came out in 2020 or something like that. Towards the end. So it's been around for a while now and it's doing well for them.
Yeah. In fact, I remember Dodo's wife's car, a Brio, got submerged and they bought a Magnite instead and she's very kicked with the Magnite. So we know this car works. Now, let me rephrase that question. If you had 40 lakh rupees today, would Nissan enter your consideration set?
No.
Therefore, this car is not going to do much for Nissan.
I mean, for the same price, or let's say similar price, when you can get a Kodiaq when it comes, now the new Kodiaq will come, which has more power, which is more enjoyable to drive.
And Skodas in general are more luxurious than this.
Which has all-wheel drive. So it's getting all that tech.
Oh, this is a two-wheel drive car?
Yeah, this is a front-wheel drive.
But I saw all these pictures of these people doing off-roading with the X-Trail.
What?
From the media launch thing, there were pictures of things in the bush.
Maybe people took it out that way, but it's a two-wheel drive car.
Okay.
It's front wheel. The base engine comes as a front wheel drive.
Okay.
The all-wheel drive is with hybrid tech.
Got
and that's also
which
the
is not
top spec. You have a mid-spec version which has hybrid system, but it's front wheel drive. And then there's a top spec which is called the E-Force or something like that.
E-Force?
Force or something like that.
Or Force E.
There's E-Power and then Force. Yeah, Force E, I think it's that. So that gets a...
I was just guessing, I don't actually know.
It's a 4 and then...
Oh, yeah. So clever.
And that gets a electric motor at the rear, which then becomes all-wheel drive. So that's what it is. So this, even in terms of attributes, this engine, yes, the drivability is good. The way it drives and all is enjoyable, it's nice. You can travel with it easily, but has the choice of going with all this high-tech downsizing with that variable compression and all, did it clearly come across as a benefit in terms of fuel efficiency while I was driving? Not really. Not really. I would have expected more. And if it were a hybrid, it would be far more impressive.
Sure.
So,
and it's a strong hybrid, so you'd get full electric mode, etc. in the process.
Now this has mild hybrid, so it has stop-start tech and that kind of stuff. And even through all of that, this feels pretty smooth. The 3-cylinder aspect of it is not the thing that will bother you.
Sure.
Its performance will not bother you. But if you were spending this kind of money, why would you spend it on this? Is the question that I can't answer.
Yeah, well, this is not a very happening situation then.
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be a start, but this can't be the kind of start. I mean, would you want to, you want to start on a high. I would pick...
No, I've already lost interest in the car. Look, as far as I'm concerned, this is not seeming like a car that anybody with 40 lakh rupees should natively consider in the first place. It doesn't sound like it's a car you would recommend if somebody known to you would call you and say, hey, this new Nissan X-Trail is out, it's 40 lakh rupees, should I consider it? It's sounding more and more like you'll say, look, you can do better with your money, this is not the car to get.
Yeah.
So everything is already stacked up against it. Now, between now and the Magnite facelift, do they have other CBUs planned?
No.
Why not?
Because the Magnite is just maybe another 6 months or so. So there's nothing.
So why did they need to do this X-Trail now for the stopgap for 6 months? What would happen in 6 months?
I don't know, man. I mean, we wouldn't even be having this conversation if they had got the top spec X-Trail in, we'd be saying, oh, it's ridiculously expensive. But it tells us exactly what Nissan is about or what their new tech is about. And they've chosen to do things in a different way, which is great. I mean, we'd love to see and experience that, but not with this. We're not getting to see it with this.
Very interesting. So what is there to discuss now?
And so that's exactly it. I mean, on what front? It sounds, I'm also feeling like I'm being a bit harsh on it. But other than the sense of quality inside the cabin, okay, the fact that it's well made, which is all the stuff that you'd expect from.
Yeah, but again, you're not saying luxurious, you're saying quality.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do I compare it to something else with and say that, yeah, this is a step up from that? I don't. This car, if it were priced at 30 lakh rupees, just under 30 even, I would say it's got a case. But at 50 lakh rupees, between 40 and 50 lakh rupees, if this was sitting somewhere in between the Compass and the Meridian, I would say, okay.
So what are the chances Nissan will pull a rabbit out of their hat and give you the price at 29 lakh rupees?
Well, if they do, I'd be very happy for them. And then I'd just be wondering why we come back to this. Is it only 150 then?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. You're not going to do it for 150 units. Because then at that price, more people will want it. And you can't really discount it down to that if you have to even pull it off for some time.
Ouch. Okay, so basically what we have to now do with Nissan is wait for the Nissan Magnite facelift to come and then discuss that in detail.
And I really, really hope that they get that right. Because there are a few fixes that it needs clearly for it to be, I mean, I think of it as the best looking car in the segment.
Yeah, it is a good looking car.
It's a gorgeous looking car.
Yeah.
It's the turbo petrol and CVT is, and oh yeah, I'm sorry, I have to take care of this. We spoke about that, the sense of apology. I don't get why, I mean, they should be the ones pushing the agenda that CVTs are awesome. And CVTs are awesome, and Nissan has been making great CVTs for ages. We've seen it, the Magnite combination is superb. It needs a few tweaks, but other than that, what a combination it is. And in this car as well, that CVT, you never ever think that it's a CVT. It's so quick, it's so tight, it's always there, it's on it.
Right.
You enjoy driving it all the more because of that.
And it's part of the reason why the 163 bhp doesn't bug you too much. Yeah.
It won't. Because it's always there, picking up any slack that might be there.
Right.
And that engine is working well. There are a few details that we must talk about. It's cool, interesting. That engine, when it starts up, it sounds a bit different. It has a little bit more noise to it. It's like, are there more parts in this? And it does have more parts to it, right? Yeah. So when the first time starts up, you're like, it's kuch alag hai, like that. And when you're driving, there's this one slight little whistle sound. I don't know where, what, but it's just there. So it sounds a bit different. It's a little bit cool. It's good, like it's got a personality to it, but it just doesn't have the dressing around it. It doesn't have the practicality as well when you think of it as a family car, right? This is supposed to be a family car. That second row, forget about the knee room aspect of it. It's low as well. So it's not the ideal backseat to spend time in.
Right.
This is a very developed market focused car where you can think of it as, what's called as the soccer mom car, where the mom is driving and there are kids in the back and maybe in all.
And that is the primary role of that car in that universe, as it were.
You can see it working over there. I mean, I can very well imagine it sells very well in the US. It's called the Rogue there. And this genre category of car is very popular for this specific purpose.
Ouch.
So there are so many of these small things that just don't click. They don't click for us. In terms of what Nissan has chosen, in terms of what the attributes of the X-Trail are today, that I don't know who it's going to talk to. If we were talking about the first gen X-Trail, and it was expensive, okay, no problem. It was diesel, it had its quirky bits, but people who bought them...
Yeah, they were super kicked with them. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't see that happening with this.
Yeah, it was true for that other car also. What was the GM Forester? The Subaru Forester, which was renamed here as Chevrolet Forester. People who drove Foresters loved their Foresters. But at the time, selling a petrol SUV was just like the wrong thing to do, and the Forester sales were terrible. But everybody who owned a Forester, and we were lucky to know 2 or 3 people who were parking their cars in the areas that we were. So we would meet them infrequently. We didn't know them. But there were 3 Foresters where we would normally go. So I think, imagine that you go to a restaurant regularly and there was somebody who came to that building in a Forester. So you would run into this person repeatedly, right? They were super kicked with their Forester. Say, what a great car, how easy to drive, etc., etc. But in that context box, petrol, SUV, game over.
I was just thinking the other day, there used to be somebody who used to come to the track who had an X-Trail
Yeah.
for the longest time.
Yeah, you're right.
And I remember always, like, there's this moment stuck in my head that we were leaving the track, the car was ahead of me, and the way it drives, I still remember it from that. And I don't even remember who it was, but I remember the car, and he was just so happy with it. And he was coming from Bengaluru, I think, so
Correct.
he was driving up and down to the track in
Correct.
that car, and
Yeah.
he said, "No problem. When I need to go off the highway to avoid jams and all,
Yeah, it's
all that,
easy.
I can manage."
Yeah, I remember the old X-Trail as being a compact, very easy to drive car that was luxurious for its time. So it was a cut above in terms of how the cabin flowed. It was a cut above in terms of how compact it felt when you drove it. And you could do this with it. You could go a little bit off-road, you could drive it down the road, and it never felt completely out of sorts. And which is what I have my memory of that X-Trail as. What you're telling me now is not matching.
So actually, if when you draw a line from that X-Trail to this X-Trail, it's fairly linear. The problem is that the surroundings
Yeah, the context has changed completely.
has changed.
Yeah, of course.
So this car, like I said at the start, is a sensible car for another market. When it comes to our country,
Yeah.
at these prices,
Yeah.
it's not meant to be sensible anymore.
Yeah.
It's meant to be aspirational. It's meant to be a little bit out there in terms of what it's bringing to you as
Correct.
technology and as a driving experience, which this isn't.
It's supposed to blaze a trail for the Nissan brand, but it is the X-Trail.
X factor nahi hai.
Great. Should I do a quick summary now? Are you done? Because it sounds like you're done.
And yeah, it doesn't have a spare wheel, fine. In terms of luggage space, if you're using all three rows, then there's very little. There's enough for overnighter and one soft bag, that kind of stuff. And when you fold the third row down, it's better, but it's still not fantastic. I
No,
think
because
for
it's not a
car.
very large car.
Yeah, for this size of car, it's not that impressive. In the cabin, anything else that I would like to point your attention towards? No, that's okay. We are pretty much
Safety?
set. Safety, this is a Euro NCAP 5-star car. So 7 airbags and...
So in B and Cab, it will get 92 stars.
uh,
You'll be happy, right?
so it's that way. I mean, like from platform I mean, see, when it drives also, you feel that sense of confidence. So that in the star rating that it shows, I'm not surprised. It's Euro NCAP 5 as far as I remember. And this is got 7 airbags for India. So yeah, that's basically it.
One airbag per person in the car, no?
Yeah. Divide it up that way.
Okay, here's the quick summary for the Nissan X-Trail, and honestly, there's not a lot to talk about. The first thing that Karthik pointed out is do not get distracted by the specification because this car drives a lot better than the specification suggests. And this is because Nissan was trying to build a halo car to promote the idea that Nissan is an aspirational brand, but for some reason, out of the 3 levels of the X-Trails available to them, they've gone and brought the lowest one to India. So this is the most practical version of their halo car, and there is a huge disconnect there because the expected price is about 40 lakh rupees.
I wouldn't call it practical. I'm just sorry. It's just the most affordable.
Sorry. So Nissan has access to 3 levels of the X-Trail, but instead of going all out and bringing the hybrid 4-wheel drive model, etc., what they managed to do is go and bring the most affordable of these 4 models. And that means when the price goes and sits at something like the 40 lakh rupee mark, as we record this, there is no price. We'll put it on the screen if it is out by the time this is out. It should be. But at 40 lakh rupees, you can do a lot better in terms of the size of the car that you buy, in terms of the performance you get in those cars, and the kind of sense of luxury and premium that you get from the car. All 3 are critical to this price point. All 3 the Nissan doesn't do too well. What it does well is actually drive. So if you look at the engine, it's a 1.5 liter engine. It's a 3-cylinder engine. It's a very cool engine because it's got a variable compression system, which you should look up. It's a very cool system. It's a turbo petrol. It makes 300 Newton meters of torque. It has 163 bhp. These are modest numbers, but it works with a CVT, and Nissan makes excellent CVTs. So you'll never imagine that the car is that weak in the real world as you would think it is on paper. So it drives really well. And between the CVT and the engine, they actually make it feel very, very drivable and even a little bit fun. Similarly, if you look at the wheels, they are 20-inch wheels, and Karthik nearly had a heart attack looking at it saying, oh my God, on Indian roads, this will be terrible, but it's not. It manages itself pretty well. Is it super corseting, comfortable, plush? No, but it does a reasonably good job of that too. Similarly, if you look at the cabin inside, there's not a lot of equipment, honestly. For the price there should have been, but you do get your basics. You get the panoramic sunroof, so you can throw 2 children out, one from the front and one from the back if you feel like it. You do get extremely good quality plastics. They are soft touch, but they're very well finished. Karthik wishes that these kind of plastics would show up in the Magnite as well, which would increase the value quotient and quality quotient of that car, which is otherwise such a great car to drive. But there are quirks in there. For example, your driver's instrument display behind your steering wheel is 12 inches, but the entertainment system, which everybody else gets to see, is relatively much smaller. So your sense of this is a premium cabin, it's not going to come very easily. This is exacerbated by the fact that, for example, wireless Android Auto CarPlay probably doesn't have it. He couldn't figure it out. The middle row seats are set very low, and this is not a very large car, so it's not a very spacious car either. Third row, he says, please don't try to use the third row. Whoever goes there is eventually going to curse you. If the third row is up, there's hardly any boot space. If you fold the third row down, it's better, but it's not like it's a lot of boot space. And there is a complicated, well-engineered way to lift the floor, but under that is a repair kit, not a spare wheel, because the 40 lakh rupee Nissan X-Trail doesn't come with a spare wheel. This, Karthik says, is a trend that you can start to ignore, because as time passes, more and more vehicles will not come with spare wheels, because this is part of reducing the weight and therefore the emissions and increasing the fuel economy and the other considerations that these manufacturers have. Net, what he's saying is this front wheel drive X-Trail was enjoyable to drive. Did it feel as luxurious, premium, feature loaded as a 40 lakh rupee car today needs to feel like? It's not, and therefore he has a huge disconnect with Nissan trying to say we want to position ourselves as a premium brand, tell the Indian customer what Nissan stands for as a Japanese company, as a manufacturer of cars that range all the way from the GTR down to something like a Magnite. But they've chosen the wrong model of the X-Trail, and is going to probably sit at an unreasonable price versus its competition today, and therefore it's not going to go anywhere serious. And therefore I called it the X-Trail. Now, what I would like you to look forward to for Nissan is, we do like driving the Magnite. We think it's a great car. In about 6-8 months from now, you should see the facelifted Magnite come out, which hopefully will have a little bit more performance. It'll have a little bit more equipment, overall cabin quality, premium feel kind of thing. If it goes up a little bit, Nissan will be off to a great start on a car that has already done a lot of good work for them so far. What is Nissan missing today? Their showroom basically have one car, a popular car, but it's only one car. This seems to be a stopgap measure to have two cars in the showroom. I don't think this is going to go very well, but they have showcased other vehicles, including specific to India platforms, including an electric that's supposed to come over the next 2 years. So maybe you don't want to look forward to the X-Trail, but keep an eye on Nissan. They are trying. They're not doing a very good job, the X-Trail says, but they are trying.
Nice.
Please rate my summary.
So only thing I'll add to that is that with their India products, there's so much potential. Like, they've not done a Triber equivalent.
No.
And that car is also a superb car.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that they can do quickly if they choose to.
Correct.
Which will be right for us as well. And
bring back the Duster, man.
So that is Renault. So
Yeah,
once Renault does that, then they'll get.
But they're friends of each other, right? They're not enemies.
So that is the bigger SUV now. So that will come. So that is also.
What Xterra? What was it called?
No, it was called the Terrano.
Terrano.
And apparently 5-seater, 7-seater configuration.
So Terrano and Terrano rocks.
Oh God, no. Okay. Yes.
No. The Thar rocks actually should have been called the Thar rolls. Hopefully they fix that.
That was the Scorpio.
No, Thar also.
But Thar actually rocks. Rocks is right for the Scorpio rolls.
But how did they get away with that name? It doesn't end in an O.
Hey man, I didn't even think about that.
Sorry, Nissan, but we have to discuss this. Just taking a break from the X-Trail just for a minute. It should be called the Thar Roxo, no?
So somebody's thinking differently in Mahindra now.
How? They're still doing Independence Day launches.
They are.
Aren't they?
Yeah, they are. But hopefully it drives differently.
So, and that the Thar Rocks, for whoever doesn't know, is the 5-door Thar.
Correct.
And if you buy it, it is Tharo.
Oh God.
It means yours.
Yes, I know.
It's not a joke. I don't know why you think this is a joke. It's serious. If you buy a Thar, it is Tharo. Sorry. Okay, let's get back to Nissan. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, I'm done. I went in there with some expectations of this bringing that Nissan-ness back, but this is not doing it for me.
Okay. Now, just to summarize, 6-8 months to a facelift, there's not much that Nissan can really do in terms of incorporating feedback. But if you were given charge of the Nissan Magnite facelift, what are the 3 critical changes that you think must absolutely be made?
Very clear, very simple. First, fix the plastics inside the cabin. They are too rattly. Some of them look too cheap.
Okay.
Second, sound insulation. The sound insulation has to be improved, because along with the plastics, that poor sound insulation just makes it feel cheap,
Yeah, it does.
right? And the third thing that I would want fixed is some fine tuning with the suspension, especially with the turbo CVT, because that is our default recommendation for the car. And that it should be softened down a bit so that it takes on its practical persona a little bit more seriously. This car has a lot of performance, it's really quick. I think that can be softened
Okay.
so that fuel efficiency improves. And that becomes a better balance. It'll still have the performance, it'll be easier to drive and more fuel efficient.
Understood.
So then it completes that circle of being a sensible pick. So
Understood.
it should do that. And I think with the AMT, and I'm going to tell everybody who's listening and thinking about this, the Magnite, if you're thinking about the base engine, do not get the AMT.
Okay.
That just does a disservice to the car altogether. Anybody who has the
So
AMT,
it's the avoidable manual transmission.
he's brilliant. In this case, now see, the thing is, because of this, people will think all AMTs are terrible.
Right.
All AMTs are not terrible. It's the combination of that engine being weak. It's smaller in displacement than all of its rivals. It's a 3-cylinder versus most of its rivals are 4 cylinders. They're 1.2-liter engines. So they have more power. They have more latitude to do stuff. And then you slap an AMT onto it.
Right, got it.
So it struggles. And that's why a lot of people get pissed off with their cars because of that AMT.
Understood.
So just skip that. And I think even if you did away with the AMT and Nissan were to do away with the AMT, I think that'll be better
They'll be
for
doing
them.
okay.
Yeah. It'll be better for them because the product will have a better reputation.
Understood.
That's it.
All right.
Yeah.
Shall I sign off?
Yes, please, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for watching. That is the story of the Nissan X-Trail. Not a very uplifting story, I must admit, but it is how it is. We are hoping Nissan will put it together for the Magnite facelift and then things will look up a lot more. If you have any more questions, please leave us a comment. We try and answer all of our comments. We are pretty good at it, although we know that we are at the edge of how many comments that we can answer now. You can also watch this or listen to this on YouTube Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts used to be there. The platform itself has been retired, and Amazon Music. There is a new way that we are working on, so you can access our content even more simply than this. But I don't think we're quite ready to reveal the full nature of that yet. Are you excited for that?
What's the chance?
Hmm?
What do you think?
We are excited for it. Thank you so much for watching.